Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you are joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. And you know, it's this wonderful time of year during the spring that it's always good to find out from people who know a whole lot more about plants and planting and vegetables and fruits and what to do. And we're really excited to welcome into the program Heather Kirk-Ballard, who is a horticulturalist with the LSU AgCenter. Heather, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate that. Well, tell me a little bit about you, but more importantly, how you decided to get more involved in horticulture.
Well, you know, I went to school at LSU. I'm a consumer horticulturist. I work for the Extension Service. I also teach at LSU. I just love plants. Always have. My mother was a gardener. She grew up on a farm in Nebraska, so gardening was always a big part of our life, and just something that I really enjoy. So I pursued that when I went to school. I did study horticulture. That's not where I started, but my love of gardening, my love of plants definitely guided me through my career and what I've done.
Oh, that's awesome. And when you finally get enough people asking you, hey, how do you do this? It makes you want to share that love with other people. Is that right?
Oh, exactly. And, you know, that kind of happened during COVID. You know, not to throw my neighbors out there, but all of a sudden during COVID, when people had a surplus of time, they were going outside and tackling different gardening activities. They were sick of being cramped in the house. Gyms were closed down. Nobody could go out and get dinner. So the way that they kind of relieved that stress and that, you know, kind of cabin fever, where a lot of people went out and tackled projects in the garden. And so some of my neighbors know what I do. I'm the host of the Get It Growing program that is statewide. So right. That's columns in the newspaper. It's videos that go out on the news stations. Right. And they're like, I can go ask Heather about what's going on with my plants. And so it is fun to share that information with people.
Yeah, and so I guess it's really interesting. Is there anything in particular that you guys have learned, even through LSU AgCenter, that y'all learned through COVID? I mean, is there anything that we've kind of, you know, I'm always looking for the silver lining. I'm always looking for something that maybe was good that came out of COVID or spending a little more time at home.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful for our industry, for the green industry, because people got so involved in gardening. There was a national gardening survey that was done throughout the United States and globally, actually. And we gained 19 million new gardeners just in the United States alone. I conducted a survey in Louisiana, and we found that 84% of people were gardening more with all this free time that they had. And then when we asked follow-up questions about, will you continue to garden? Most people, 82%, said that they would continue to garden even after things go back to normal in COVID. And so that's good news for us. Now, there are some shortages of plants because people really went out there and bought plants, bought up all the seeds, especially with concerns about food scarcity during that time and not being able to get to the grocery store. Lots of people bought up vegetable seeds. More people are planting fruit trees, just general, people are just gardening more, lots more color. People are doing a lot of container gardening, actually, because, you know, as our lot sizes shrink and some people who live in apartments and things like that, you know, they want to bring some kind of joy and nature into their even small spaces. So containers provide that opportunity for people who don't have a lot of room. And so indoor plants have seen a spike almost as high as when it was in the 70s. People really indoor plants, and you know, they're creating these Zoom jungles because so many people are working from home. And you know, see, I have my plant in the background back here at home. Anyway, so yeah, everybody just on every level has really been gardening.
Yeah, and so it's so very interesting, especially down in South Louisiana, how we like to try new things. And listen, I will tell you, growing up down here in very South Louisiana, we see, I know probably 50% of my friends and families have gardens. I mean, they really do. And so is there something in particular that makes a good home garden in South Louisiana?
Well, you know, we are so fortunate to live in an area of subtropical temperatures. So that's great for our plants. It means that we have an extended growing season. We can grow a lot of ornamentals, all those beautiful flowers, things like that. Vegetable gardening is very popular, and there are a lot of varieties of different plants that we can grow down here. You know, the typical tomatoes, peppers, okra. Those are going to be our warm season vegetables that people are growing right now. Corn
Okay.
is another thing that folks are growing. So, and then you're thinking about blueberries are going to be able to be harvested soon around June. Blackberries are in flower right now, so they will be making fruit very soon. It's just an exciting time of year. You know, figs do well here in Louisiana and South Louisiana. Of course, we're very fortunate with that more tropical temperatures that we can grow citrus like satsumas. So we're very fortunate. One unfortunate thing about those tropical hot temperatures are that bugs and diseases also like that. So it presents a challenge for gardeners, but that's part of what the LSU Ag Center's mission and vision is to do research so that we can educate homeowners, educate commercial growers and farmers on best practices of how to be the most productive. And we want to be economical because we also talk about fertilizer prices have doubled in the last year just with distribution supply chain disruptions. And unfortunately, the war in Ukraine and Russia or in Ukraine is affecting us because we don't have raw materials in order to make those fertilizers. So it's forcing us, just like COVID did, to pivot and learn more about how we can possibly provide nutrients to our plants on a budget, right? Or without being able to access fertilizers that we did in the past.
Right. You know, you were talking at the end of the last segment about some of the global changes that impact what our availability is. And, you know, fertilizer, one of those things that's doubled in price, and really trying to be able to figure out what to do and how to do it. That's what y'all spend a lot of time over the Ag Center figuring out, how do we go about doing this and best practices for planting and flowering.
Right. So yeah, that's part of our mission: research, teaching, extension. We want to learn more and extend that knowledge to the public. And so we have lots of folks at the Ag Center that are not only doing research in agronomic crops, livestock, you know, food sciences, what have you. My specialty or my arena is horticulture, which involves turf grasses. It involves fruits and nuts and vegetables and ornamentals, which people love. And one of the great programs that we have when it comes to ornamental plants is our Louisiana Super Plant program. And so that is done in coordination with the Louisiana Nursery and Landscape Association with the LSU Ag Center. And so what we're trying to do is use data-based information, you know, research-based information to provide that to the public. So what that means is that we evaluate plants at the Hammond Research Station. That's part of one of the research stations with the LSU Ag Center. And we look at annuals and perennials. We have shrubs and trees, and most of these are of ornamental value. So those that are pretty, those that you're going to use in the landscape. And we want to make sure that we're choosing plants and recommending plants to our folks here in Louisiana, statewide, in every region from north to south, plants that have superior qualities to make those recommendations. And what that means is that these plants flower well, they don't have a lot of disease, not a lot of insect problems. And we grow those plants, we collect data. We actually invite the public to come out on field days, to come out and evaluate and say, yeah, we like this plant. This one's the best looking. And then every year the LSU Ag Center releases 3 different types of plants, one for the spring, one for the summer, one for the fall, that we recommend. And this program's been going on for over 20 years now. And so once you're a super plant, you're always a super plant. That information is available on the LSU Ag Center's website. In addition, we talk about orchards at home for the homeowner, citrus growing for the homeowner. Dr. Catherine Fontenot is our vegetable specialist, and she has a publication called Veggie Bites. We also have horticulture hints that comes out every season in every region of the state. And you can get information on what to do in your lawns if there's issues with insects in your turf grass or any disease. We have a plant pathologist specialist that can tell you about disease if you're experiencing trouble. Of course, we have entomologists who can help identify insects or problems that they may cause. So all sorts of information from the soil all the way to the plants. You can have soil tests done at the LSU Ag Center. And we're here to provide that information to you. And our website is a wealth of information, and it's ongoing research, ongoing research.
Okay. Can you give out that website just so people that are watching, because I know they're excited about that, give out that website for people to be able to go on and get more information about what y'all are doing at the LSU AgCenter?
Yeah, it's www.lsuagcenter.com.
There you go. Couldn't get more simple than that. And you brought
Yeah.
up something really important about what has happened. Here we're still recovering from Hurricane Ida. And so I know a lot of people are asking questions about whether or not some of their trees survived or not. Any recommendations to them, especially pine trees down in our area and the impact that they've had?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that definitely is a problem. Every time we have a hurricane come through, it was devastating to our timber and forestry industry, which is our largest industry in the state, actually. My best recommendation is to contact your local county agent. You can also get that information. You can find their names, numbers, the local parish offices on the LSU AgCenter's website. So that's our first place to start. We want to start with photos and things like that. They can make some home visits, but we have not a whole lot of agents to cover a whole lot of folks. So we try to limit that and do our advising over the phone and through internet. We can even do Zoom calls, right? Mm-hmm. So you can contact your local county agents. You can contact the AgCenter's main office, and you can be routed to the correct people. And then there's all sorts of great resources on the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry's website to find out information, especially if homeowners are needing licensed arborists. So when you're dealing with trees that are downed or damaged and you have a concern that it might hit your house or hit your neighbor's house, that is a wonderful site where you can locate licensed arborists that can come take care of those for you.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I know that we down in our different parishes down here in South Louisiana kind of partner to find out and who is it that can come and do that and what is available. And you don't want to cut something down if it's not necessary, or you can cut it back. It's one of the things I'm starting to learn a little bit about. As my wife tells me, I do like planting and dealing with vegetables and doing that in the garden, but really figuring out what you can do to cut back. And I know as we're going to continue here in this next segment, talking about some of the options that people have about figuring out what to do during the spring and some of the recommendations you may have about some of the lawn care tips and some of the pest control tips about what we can do. Knowing when to cut those things back is really important. For example, rose bushes, there's a certain time that's good to be able to cut those back. People don't always know what is right to plant at what time. And so how do we choose the right flowers in our home garden?
Well, the best place to start is with local retail garden centers. They are going to carry the stock that is the best for this time of year, right? So they're not going to have, going into the spring, they're not going to be stocking a bunch of cool season annuals or perennials and vegetables. They are going to be stocking season appropriate plants. Right. Okay, so that's the best place to start. Also, utilizing those court hints that we talked about on the LSU AgCenter's website, right, that make recommendations according to each season. And it'll not only focus on ornamentals, but it also talks about what you should be doing in your lawns with your turf grass and vegetables and fruits and nuts if you grow those. On occasion, we talk about indoor plants, but indoor plants have their own thing, right? They're in season year round. So you can always find information on just about anything that you want at the LSU AgCenter's website. And you can try some of the other land grant university extension websites as well. If you find that there's a topic that you can't find information on at the Ag Center, it's always a great idea to work with other land grant universities.
Okay. And now that we're in the springtime, is there certain lawn care tips or any pest control tips we need to be aware of?
Yeah, so right now is a good time to fertilize the lawn. Now that we are not going to have any more freezes, this is the time to do that. We also want to take care of any weeds in the lawn because weeds cause competition. They bring in insects, and our lawns are going to be so much more vigorous if we take care of the weeds and we fertilize those turf grasses. And summertime is when turf is in its most active growth phase, right? So this is the time to do that. If you haven't aerified your lawn in a while, in the middle of the summer would be a good time. It kind of helps to get rid of compaction in the soil and promotes good root growth, good foliage growth. And of course, now's a great time to get vegetables in your vegetable garden. If you're doing that, you can still use seeds, but if you want, you can go buy transplants at local retail garden centers. And then just about any type of, keep your eye out for those Louisiana super plants. It's a good time to plant shrubs in the spring. This is the time to just do everything, right? As our plants begin to bloom and they're putting out new foliage, they're going into active growth. This is a good time to actually fertilize your plants. You don't want to prune anything right now, especially summer blooming plants or shrubs. And roses, it's a little bit late. We want to trim roses. The rule of thumb and what we kind of tell people is by Valentine's Day, because we always think of roses when we think of Valentine's. So you want to make sure that you're trimming roses at that time. If you've missed that, we're going to wait again until the fall or into next spring or to next winter to do that.
Yeah, and some really good recommendations and hints. And fortunately, you put out lots of information about what to do and what months are the best time to do it, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, of course. So yeah, looking at those seasonal publications that we have, certain plants do better in the cool season while others do, when we think about vegetables, we're thinking in the cool season, we're talking about broccoli and cabbage, leafy greens. And in the springtime, we're talking things that are going to grow in the heat, right, of the summertime. So we're talking corn and okra and peppers, eggplant, potatoes. If you haven't, well, it's probably too late to get your potatoes in, but you can also have both a fall and a spring crop of potatoes. So you just want to be aware. And again, we have all these seasonal publications that are available on the LSU AgCenter's website. And you can do a search in the home and garden or home and lawn section, and you can find just about anything you need for recommendations for what to do in what season.
Okay. And now, speaking of, is there anything people can go and be a part of or go experience? I know you mentioned being able to come out to Hammond and see some of the things there at the LSU Ag Center. Is there anything going on in the spring that some of our planners want to be aware of?
Right. This is very timely because the Hammond Research Station is holding their plant sale this Saturday from 9 to 4. The St. Tammany Master Gardeners are holding their plant sale this weekend. Check the LSU AgCenter's website again, because it's kind of the hub, right?
Right.
We have a calendar of all those activities. So again, St. Tammany and Hammond are both having sales this weekend. You can find that information on the LSU AgCenter's website. Spring is a big time. There is just about a garden show every single weekend, right? And somewhere in the state. Also in the fall, we gear up again because fall in Louisiana is like our second spring, right?
Okay.
So keep an eye out for those. They have those things going on this weekend, and yeah, check the website. It'll give you an idea of what's going on.
So if anybody's really listening, or even if you're not listening, the one thing you need to do is check out that website, and it's www.lsuagcenter.com. And
Yes.
so people can go to that and, again, check out the calendar. You can see all the different events that are going on. You can see lots of different information that Heather and her team has put up there, and recommendations about what to do, how to go about doing it, and information about some of the research that they're doing over at the Ag Center to be able to make sure that planning is easier for you. And so, Heather, we appreciate you coming on very much and sharing all your knowledge with us. It's going to make for a much better spring and hopefully a better year each year, getting able to do those things in our homes.
Good. Thank you. It was
Awesome.
a pleasure.
We appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much. And again, it's one of those times that we really want to get out and get our hands dirty. It's a great time to be out in the spring. So get out into your flower beds and your gardening and have some fun with it. And that will do it for us here for this particular Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming here on HTV.